Start it back up with Josh and Enterprise Mobile Security.
Let me know when you're ready, Dave. All right. Oh, someone's coming in real fast. Wait a second. Okay. All right, so here it is, Enterprise Mobile Security going beyond the BlackBerry. So who am I? I'm Josh Kelly. I'm a security engineer down at a Fortune 1000 company south of Akron, north of Canton, right by the airport. Starts with a D, ends with a D, called Diebold. So I work with Relic, Dave Kennedy. He's one of my bosses. So I have my GSEC, GCIH certifications. I've done the offensive security training. I've done a lot of stuff. So also last year, Relic and I spoke at Black Hat and DEF CON about PowerShell, as you heard Jody's talk, and also about the 10C devices. So, what I'm hoping for with this presentation is actually a lot of interaction from you guys. I'm kind of going to go over some of the stuff that I've come across when we've started deploying iPads, iPhones, Android devices on our network. All the execs want them. They think they're great. They think they're awesome. They always want to be on the top of the food chain when it comes to this stuff. Some of them actually don't like the iPad, so that's kind of weird for me. So, and this is really why they want them. They want them for the apps, specifically Angry Birds. Who here doesn't play Angry Birds?
I have a Droid.
Yeah, Droid iPhone. That's where it's at, man.
I got a BlackBerry.
I'm sorry.
Me too.
I have Angry Birds in physical form.
But I mean, it's apps like these. I mean, you've got your Angry Birds, you've got your Google Maps, you've got like Pandora. Who doesn't use Pandora on their phone? I know I use it constantly. So all these apps are great. They're nice little things. But this is what sells it for the executives, though. Most of us have OWA, I'm assuming, and we have it exposed out to the internet. So since we have OWA exposed out to the internet, it enables ActiveSync. ActiveSync is Microsoft's way of allowing these mobile devices to natively connect in to Outlook and sync up their contacts, sync up their email, sync up their contact in calendar.
Yeah.
So it's real simple, it's real easy. They just type in their username, they type in their password, and they point it to the server, and boom, it's configured. It works on Androids, it works on iPhones, works on BlackBerries too, even though that's the corporate standard. So, but there's a risk with these devices. These devices are really computers. They're no longer just your typical phone that you were given back in the late 90s, early 2000s. These things can do so much more. So when you lose your phone, you got to worry about data leakage. A lot of things on there, are your business emails, the attachments, that Excel file that you downloaded that has your budget on there, your corporate contacts. These phones can access the corporate phone book. So it's a treasure trove for social engineers, social engineering people. Personal calendars, what's better than knowing right where you're going to be every second of the day? And most people put their personal emails on these phones. So did anyone see the I think it was Channel 5 or Channel 8 show where they showed what they can do with an iPhone forensically? They were able to grab 14,000 files off of an iPhone. Tom Eston and some others from Secure State did this. They pulled the journalist's iPhone, and 4 years worth of data was able to be retrieved from the phone. In that data, they were able to pull bank account statements. They were able to pull Facebook information. They tried to even get into the email of the person, and they were stopped by a security question. But that was easy for them to get to because they used the Facebook app that was on there that stored the password to automatically go into Facebook and contact the relative of the person, and they were able to get the security questions answered. We also did a app assessment of one of these applications that was for an Android that we were getting, and when we ripped this thing apart, we found in there that the encryption keys were right there in plain text, or once we decompiled it, right there in plain text. The passwords were being stored in plain text. It was incredible what we found when we actually looked at this stuff. It was scary. It was like we're back in the 90s again.
Was this application something like Angry Birds, or was it something more along the lines of?
No, this was actually a business application. The business contacted us and said they wanted to use this Android application, and I think it was for like video monitors and stuff like that, to monitor the cameras like in parking lots and stuff like that.
Okay.
So they wanted us to allow it. And at Diebold, we have a policy that if you're bringing any new application in, regardless of the platform, you have to send it to security for us to review it. So part of this was one of our guys had to actually learn how to decompile an Android app and use it. So in looking at these apps too, there's also a lot of privacy risk. You know, a lot of these apps are sitting there asking, hey, you know, I'm going to go ahead and modify your SD card. I'm going to go ahead, you know, look at GPS. I'm going to go ahead and delete things off your file system. And you're wondering, why are you doing that, Angry Birds? I just want to sit there and flick birds at, you know, pigs. This one right here, I mean, this app that I found, it monitors your phone calls, you know, prevents your phone from going into sleep, and modifies your storage. Why would an alarm clock need to modify your storage? Can anyone guess why your alarm clock needs to modify your storage?
Save when it wants to go off.
That should be in a normal config file just on the system itself. The SD card really, on Androids, the SD card isn't really touched unless it's like for pictures and stuff like that. So it should be already in the configuration. The real problem with these apps is that the permissions are accepted or you don't get the app. Just like with the terms of service that you get, or the EULA on a lot of applications. You have to accept what you get. Some of these apps also include a root strap. A root strap, for you guys that don't know, is a way that the application roots your phone as part of its functionality. So some of these like backup apps will root your phone to perform their function and then unroot your phone. Pretty much, I mean, since these devices are running a Unix environment, we went back to the 90s and, you know, the security risks and the security vulnerabilities. These are a lot of the things that people are finding in these applications are risks that happened in the 90s, such as, you know, world writable file system, you know, world writable configuration files and stuff like that. The other problem with a lot of the users is they like to root their devices. They don't know why they like to root their devices. That's actually the big one. They just want to do it because it's the cool thing to do. How many people have a rooted device here? How many people have a reason for rooting their device? Okay, I'm seeing different hands go up here. Now, you guys are messing with me. So a lot of people want to root their device to improve their performance. They want to, you know, get these things like special apps that can only work if you root your device. They want to get move their apps from their phone to their SD card. They think that they need to root it to do the multi-touch interface on there, or they want to get this other keyboard that they saw on another phone. But a lot of these times, and the big one actually is the wireless or Wi-Fi Bluetooth tethering, so that way they can circumvent their carrier's pricing model. A lot of times, though, people root their devices simply because they can. They don't have any idea of what the security I can't speak tonight. Sorry. So they don't have any idea why they want to do this. They just think it's cool and they want to do it.
That's why I want to do it.
That's what?
That's exactly why I wanted to do it.
Yeah, I mean, what's cooler than going around saying, "Dude, take a look at my Droid. I just rooted it." We had a guy who name will not be mentioned, Dave Relic, who rooted his device and bricked his phone the other day. So luckily he got it back though. All of us worked on it to get it back for him.
Exceptional use of resources. Resources.
It's actually very good use of resources because this gives us a chance to learn about these things. And we're doing more app reviews for mobile devices. So we're injected into the change control process where they want to approve devices for specific phones. So we actually have to know how to do this stuff now. plus it gives us a chance to play with
They
droids.
did it on purpose as a management objective?
Yes, that's actually exactly what he did it for. It was for management. He wanted to test our skills.
No?
So
Improve morale by making
at his
the
own
boss happy.
expense, yeah, improve morale at his own expense. I feel really bad because he's not here and I'm making jokes at his expense.
He'll be able to see it.
It's recorded.
Well,
It's recorded.
That's right. I forgot because he asked me to do this presentation like on Friday, so he asked me at the last second about this one. The other thing too is that since these devices are computers, they're just in your pocket. They're susceptible to Trojans, worms, bots. There's the Droid Dream that just came out last month that rooted your phone, stole your data, opened a back door. What was interesting about it was it disguised itself as the top 21 free apps that are out there. So you go out to the Android market and you see an app called Guitar Hero Deluxe. You're like, okay, I'll download that. And then you see Super Guitar Hero Deluxe. Well, who's not going to go for the super version? The super version was the rooted one. So they did this with a bunch of the apps that were out there. And the scary part about it was almost 200,000 people had downloaded these apps within 24 hours. Luckily, Google, within four days of being notified of this, took all these apps down and they were able to fix the problems with it. But still, over 200,000 people had downloaded just one of these apps, and there were 21 of these out there. So then there was also the iPhone worm. Does anyone remember the iPhone worm? You root your device, you leave the default password of Alpine, and this worm goes out and looks for everything out there that has an SSH password of Alpine, changes it to some swear word, and just takes over your phone and adds it to the botnet. So this one was based on just like a proof of concept one, but I mean, it was just as deadly, and this one came out in 2009. It was pretty interesting what they were able to do with phones that had the default password of Alpine. I heard a talk where they actually were able to map people out who had rooted phones at some government agency, I think like the Pentagon. So they could sit in the parking lot and find out where this person was inside the Pentagon at all times because their phone, because they rooted it. So do you still want to root your phone now?
Yeah, I can't.
Okay. I didn't think I'd change you guys.
Isn't Apple doing that now?
Yeah, Apple's always trying to tell where you are. So, I mean, the thing is, what's more dangerous, an executive losing their wallet or the executive losing their phone? Most executives are going to tell you losing their wallet is more dangerous to them than losing their phone. But losing their wallet, they're out whatever money they had on them, and they have to go call the banks up and reset their cards, cancel their cards and get new cards in the mail. Lose their phone, more than likely they're just going to say, I lost my phone, give me another one. They're not going to think that they lost their phone that has all their personal contacts on it, that has their company email on it, that has all their personal information like their personal pictures and all that stuff. So for social engineering attacks, losing their phone is just very dangerous. And not to mention, most executives don't want to be troubled with locking their phone. That's annoying. They don't want to type in that passcode, especially when they're driving down the highway. So when you're deploying these devices, or when these devices, your user base comes by and says, hey, I want to use my iPhone to connect into the corporate email. Some of the things that you can just tell them to do, just as general practice, is really make sure they update their software, disable their Bluetooth if they don't need it, so that way they can't be like Bluetooth snarfing or anything like that. Encrypt the device if possible. iPhones, you can encrypt your device. So just so you know, Androids, it's a little bit more sketchy, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But tell them not to root their device. Obviously lock the device, enforce timeouts on the screens. Don't use the password of 1234 or 1111. Use 1 2 3 4 5. At least make it catchy. Something that you can remember from Spaceballs. So remind them to don't forget about the data. Remind them to wipe the data, back up the data. Remove the SD card if they're getting rid of their phone. So the big what we can do as security professionals though for them, outside of just telling them these general guidelines, is mobile device management. So mobile device management, or you can actually, you'll hear it referred to more as MDM. But it's, you know, this does what corporate BES servers do. Does anyone have a BES server here? Okay, cool. So MDM, you know, same thing. And it does what the BES server does but it does it for Androids, it does it for iPhones. Enforce encryption is supported, restrict apps, all that good stuff. So a lot of people don't realize, but Microsoft already does some of this, does some MDM support through their Exchange Active Sync policies. It's out of the box supported on Windows 2 or Exchange 2003, but the problem is that only Windows Mobile 6.1 and 6.5 fully support all the policies that are there. So even the Windows 7 phones nowadays aren't supporting all the policies that are in there. So, but at the basic level though, what you can do with phones is that it'll support a wipe and it'll support device blocking. So you can block you can block devices connecting into an Exchange inbox. So the third-party solutions that are out there, these are the ones that I've looked at DeWalt. So we've looked at McAfee EMM, SOTI Controls, Good Technology, Mass 360, Tongo, and Mobile Iron. We've actually implemented 3 of these technologies in various different stages. McAfee EMM is what we use for just general email connecting in with Android phones and iPhones. SOTI Controls, we use this. SOTI Controls is much better at the Windows platform. The client's a little bit thicker, and we use this in our warehouses where we have Windows Mobile scanning devices. So people have these scanning devices, but since they're still on our network, they're still an endpoint on our network, we want to secure them like we would secure our laptops. So they still have to have pins to get into them and all that stuff. Mobile Iron, you know, we've implemented that. We're actually migrating away from Mobile Iron and trying to go to more of a McAfee EMM solution. The EMM solution is a very thin client that you download from the marketplace, install it on your phone, point to the EMM server, and it just sits there and works. So this is how third-party solutions work. What you're doing is you're connecting into on your phone, you point it to the MDM, you point it to the EAS proxy server. The proxy server then is what's making your connection to your Exchange server and to your Active Directory server to do your authentication. So at the proxy server, you can do all sorts of restrictions there. Some of the restrictions that you can do is you can, you know, obviously tell it how long of a PIN or password you want. You can also do encryption at their either based on file encryption of the actual device itself or on the SD card attached to it. I'm trying to think what else you can do. There's a lot of things you can do with it. So you can restrict applications that you can run on there. So some of the applications, like on an iPhone, you can restrict YouTube. So if YouTube's being a bandwidth hog because you have all your people VPNing into your network before they can connect out to the internet, then you can restrict YouTube. You can also disable Bluetooth. You can disable the IR cameras on Windows mobile devices. So some of the issues that I've ran into trying to get MDM to work with iPhones is that Apple recently changed their policy on MDM. It used to be that you could get one generic cert from the company that you were buying the product from, and that would work for doing the advanced MDM features of the iPhone, or iOS in general. But that's no longer the case. Now you have to become a Apple developer. So regardless if you're developing iOS applications or not, you need to shell out to Apple $300 a year to get this MDM cert, which all it is just an SSL cert. So, and it has to be unique for every customer or every company that does it. So you can't share, you can't do any of that. But once you do that, though, you can you get control over all sorts of things, like the applications that are on the phone. You can sit there and say, okay, I don't want Angry Birds to be on this person's phone, but I want Angry Birds to be here. So you can do stuff like that. Issues with MDM on the Androids is, the big thing with Androids right now is if you're running if you're not running version 3.0, which hardly anyone is because not everyone has rooted phones and has the ROM for it, it doesn't support encryption through the OS. The only way you can get encryption on an Android phone right now is if you're using Motorola's business class phones, which are the Droid 2 Global or the Droid Pro. Those are the only ones that support hardware level encryption. If you want to do encryption on an Android phone, you can download some apps like the Touchdown application that is an EAS client that can replace your native EAS client on your phone. And that will allow you to do encryption, at least of just your email, but everything else is unencrypted. We recently got to play around with Honeycomb. Honeycomb supports encryption at the OS level. So the entire OS and the SD card can both be encrypted, either both together or independently of each other. So that's why Dave rooted his phone, and that's why he bricked his phone, so he can get Honeycomb. Is anyone else running Honeycomb? Okay, no, that's fine. So here's just some additional resources. Their websites. So I think these slides are going to be posted on the website later. Yeah, so the slides are going to be posted on the websites later. So obviously, don't write these down right now. Just wait till then. So, but the big thing is questions and answers. I really want you guys if you guys have any questions about this. I know I kind of went through this really fast, but you got any questions about how you are deploying mobile devices in your network? Any specific questions on how we did it? Please let me. That's why I'm here. So we'll start with you first, and then over to you.
I know at DEF CON last year there was a presentation on how to essentially man in the middle for phones.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know of any solutions to avoid that?
Solutions to avoid it, I mean, it depends on the phone, really. Each phone is unique, or I shouldn't say each phone, each operating system is unique. Like on iOS phones, so on the iPhones or iPads, there's a lot more low-level controls in there that you can see if the phone's been rooted. Obviously, that's not going to catch a man in the middle, but you can also check to see if you're doing an HTTPS connection and you're using that MDM cert the whole time. So if that cert doesn't chain up properly, then it's not going to work. So if you're man in the middle and you don't have that MDM cert, at a very basic level it might work, but any of the advanced features aren't going to work at all.
But that's only if somebody's already running on MEN cert.
Right, and
for your average user, though.
Yeah, for the average user, though, unfortunately, there's no way to really check that. I mean, I know a lot of people that when they try to connect into their OWA server, they just sit there and uncheck everything. Uncheck, check, verify that SSL cert, and do all that just so they can connect in, because they think that's how they have to do it. So that way they leave themselves exposed to man-in-the-middle attack. So.
Say somebody gets a hold of your device, and let's say before the person knows it's missing, and before you have a chance to execute a remote wipe, how would you prevent the phone from being forensically analyzed? Somebody downloading whatever's stored on the ROM or the memory. Say that again. Yeah. Well, not just law enforcement, but
Well, yeah, we're always looking at how to bypass law enforcement. So.
Right. Well, but the thing is, one of the things is the person lost the phone, and yeah, the keypad might be blocked.
Right.
But there's been trivial bypasses.
Right. I mean, there's no way for them to really without being able to do that remote wipe, and even the remote wipe won't necessarily work. I've used Neutrino. I don't know if you're familiar with Encase, but in Guidance Software. But Guidance Software has this. They sell this product called Neutrino. And Neutrino will actually allow you to put a phone into a Faraday cage, I think that's what it's called, or a lead line box, something like that, where it can't communicate out to the network, and you can forensically analyze the phone there. So that's what law enforcement's using. And people that are going to look at your phone, they're going to be able to use stuff like that, and they're going to be able to get this stuff. So there's no surefire way, because it can't connect to the network and can't communicate with your MD server or with the carrier's MDM server there's no way that you're going to be able to prevent someone from forensically analyzing your phone. So the encryption is the only way to do that. But even if the phone's on, the encryption keys are in the RAM of the phone, then you can, if you're a Harvard hacker, you can freeze the memory and pull it out. I've never tried that. I'm not that good. So, but yeah, unless you're doing the encryption, there's really no way to prevent someone from forensically analyzing your phone. And even then, the encryption on these phones, I mean, these phones, it's like we're back in the 90s again, the late 90s, early 2000s. So the encryption that they're offering, especially on the third-party ones, the encryption on the phones themselves that are offered from either the manufacturer or from the operating system provider, is a lot better than what the third-party stuff is out there.
That's probably just based on processor, right? Because if you offer too much encryption, you're gonna kill that battery having to process all that.
Yeah, I don't remember specifically. iOS, the Apple phones are the only ones that offer across the board. Every device they have offers encryption, and they don't have the SD card, so you don't have to worry about that. I don't know specifically. I think it's like AES-256 is what Motorola uses for their encryption. So, but I don't know specifically what iPhone uses, what Apple uses. Hard Rock Cafe, sure.
Have you done any work with, Juno's Pulse?
With Juno?
Juno's Pulse?
No, I haven't done any work with that one specifically. The ones that I've worked with are McAfee EMM, SODI controls, and Mobile Iron. Those are the three that I've worked with. So, pick one.
Have you guys seen any Windows 7s come in yet? And if so, how do they compare to like Android, iPhone?
Windows 7's the black sheep of the phone market. No one really wants to support them. I've constantly asked McAfee what their roadmap is with Android or with Windows Mobile 7, and they won't tell me. However, so Android's the most popular operating system right now with I think it's BlackBerry coming in second, or iOS coming in second, and then followed by BlackBerry. But over in the European market and everywhere else in the world, it's Symbian is the most popular one still, but it's like dying off like left and right. What was I going to say? Windows Mobile over there though is kind of replacing Symbian. So Windows Mobile 7, I know in like Hungary and South Africa, Windows Mobile 7 is like the phone of choice for them.
Doesn't hurt when Nokia changes.
I'm sorry?
It doesn't hurt when Nokia and Microsoft get together.
Well, Nokia was like the only provider that was supporting Symbian. So once they decided to cut it loose, it's gone. It's going to die a horrible death. Yes?
From an administrative standpoint, there's a variety of companies that are either moving away from company-owned phones to employee-owned.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any comments there as far as maintaining and securing employee-owned phones on the corporate network?
That's actually something that we're looking at, and that's why we kind of started looking at EMM. We also looked at Good Technologies a little bit, but we decided that EMM would offer better support and faster turnaround on things that we wanted. And the reason why we're looking at that, because obviously we have the infrastructure for a BlackBerry system. We have the best server and all that stuff, so we went with EMM so that way we could support the Android phones and we could support the iPhones as they were coming in. We don't want our users to actually connect in with their personal devices without having the EMM client installed, and they have to follow our controls. So, but because we can't rely on just Exchange to do that, because Exchange will only do just a blanket wipe of the entire phone, and we don't want to enforce that on our users. So we wanted something that would do a selective wipe, but we also wanted something that would detect if it was jailbroken and stuff like that. So that's why we went with EMM, so we can support that.
So it is providing enough granularity that you don't wipe out the Angry Birds scores, but you get rid of the corporate email.
Yes, it does provide that granularity for us. So we have to get our users to buy off on that. So we got to tell them that, hey, if you're going to use this to connect to corporate systems to get your personal email and stuff like that, then you have to agree to having this application on there. You have to agree to having the password set on there, and it has to be set like every 30 days or something, like, or reset or changed every 30 days. And we can remotely wipe your phone just like we can do with the BlackBerry. So they have to agree to that, and more people are agreeing to it than you would think. They're happy to have their phone be protected in such a way that allows them to be as productive as they can be. That's really what they're looking for. They're looking for that productivity increase of using their own device to connect in. So, Larry, because I know you asked first.
What kind of protection do they have to stop the user from uninstalling it or changing the settings locally?
Uninstalling it on an Android phone, it's a little bit easier because the controls aren't in Android yet to fully prevent it. But basically, it adds a new account in there as a super user account, as an administrator account. And if you try to go in and just uninstall EMM yourself without knowing about this account, then you're not going to be able to uninstall it. You have to remove the account first, and then you can uninstall the application. I think on iOS devices, you have to reset your phone to get rid of it, pretty much. So Windows Mobile, there's a pass key that you can enter, and it's set on my administrator console. So when I do the latest update to you, it'll set a new passcode or pass key, and then I have to tell you the pass key so you can uninstall it. So iOS is a little bit more unforgiving about that stuff.
Have you dug into where the settings are, and are they modifiable, or are they?
We're in the process of doing a review, at least of the Android platform of EMM, so we haven't really dug around that much yet. But EMM is pretty simple on getting it removed. But once you get it removed, though, if you're not talking to the EMM server through the EMM client, you can't connect into EMM to get your email.
Yeah, I'm thinking more of locally saying, you say I can't play Angry Birds on my phone, I just modify the local settings so I can.
That functionality isn't quite fully there in Android. So on Androids, go ahead and play Angry Birds. Play Angry Birds all you want. That's fine. But the second that we see it, though.
Whatever you're locking me down from rooting my phone.
Yeah. On Androids, because of not all the features are there yet. On iOS, there's a lot more features available, such as protecting from jailbreaking. But on Androids, that feature isn't in there yet because Google hasn't added that functionality into their NDM protocol. So it's very dependent on what phone you're using. So iPhone users are subjected to more controls than an Android user is. So, any other questions? Okay.
Do you have any opinions on any of our solutions for Android phones?
They're a joke. So, there was a talk at ShmooCon this year by Team Jock about Android specifically, and they went over an antivirus solution in there, and the signatures and what they're looking at are so rudimentary that it's more of a gimmick than anything else. It really isn't going to help you out too much. The best thing to do is really just don't sit there and download every free app you see just because you can. Just be safe about it. Be vigilant on what you're downloading and what you're using. I mean, a lot of people you don't need this non-Roxio version of Angry Birds that's out there. So don't download the official version of it or stuff like that.
Super Angry Birds.
Yeah, you don't need Super Angry Birds, hyper fighting or anything like that. So there's actually, let me go back. I think I had in my notes. I had something about an application called Lookout. So has anyone here on Android used Lookout to back up their data and to kind of keep tabs on their phone? So in Lookout, what it did was it did the scanning. It did AV and stuff like that. It also did lost device recovery, and did backup. So one of the problems with the Lookout app, so this was tagged as a security app. One of the problems with the Lookout app was that it installs a world writable configuration file. This is what I was talking about, where we went kind of back into the 90s with our security practices. Because this is a no-no. You never have 777 on a file. So the actual file on the phone was data/data/com.lookout. So inside of that, or inside of one of the libraries too, they also had a privilege escalation vulnerability. So you could use the Lookout app to actually escalate your privileges up to the root user on your Android phone. So it was a nice example of a security app that's out there, and that actually a lot of people had downloaded. Like I think 2 to 4 million people had downloaded Lookout, and I know people in my group had Lookout on their phone up until we saw this presentation, and then we immediately uninstalled it. So, but I mean that's just one of those security apps that's classifying itself as a vulnerability scanner, or as an antivirus scanning tool that really wasn't really doing anything. It was just more or less just a gimmick. Yes, you.
I'm just curious, how do BlackBerries compare to some of
How do BlackBerries compare? BlackBerries, obviously, I mean, they've been in the corporate environment a lot longer. The BES server has better control over the BlackBerries. A lot of these servers, they're trying to play catch up to BlackBerry. RIM really did a great job with the BES server environment, in my opinion, compared to a lot of these. These are kind of a few years behind, obviously. So the problem is, though, is RIM's not keeping up with what the people want. So the executives, they want the latest and greatest technology. Is the playbook out yet? RIM's playbook?
Yes.
Okay, so it finally came out?
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, here they had their tablet just now come out recently, where they're already on the second iteration of the iPad.
You'll find it at Best Buy right now.
Is that the only place you can find it at?
Well, that's where I saw it.
Yeah.
That's just because they sold you a beta version of the iPad before they released the official. I mean, technically, the playbook has all the features that the iPad 2 has.
Mhm.
You just can't have to buy it twice.
Yeah. Well, that's Apple for you. I mean, they're going to make money off you hand and fist. I mean, how many people have bought multiple iterations of iPods? I know I'm on my at least 4th or 5th iPod. So every time they up that memory, man, I got to get more. I got to be able to fit my entire music collection on my iPod.
Get more GBs.
So, but I honestly, in the corporate environment, I think RIM is still the best in my opinion, but that's not where the users want to go. They want the Android phones, they want the iPhones. So, Jody?
When you talk about seeing flaws dating back to the 90s, are you referring to primarily the application, but or also the operating system?
It's primarily application. The Android phone runs as a root, or runs a Unix environment that then has a VM environment built on top of it that runs the actual application. So it's not horrible, but I mean there are plenty of flaws in the operating system itself. But it's primarily the applications. It's just you get these fly-by-night app development houses that think they know what they're doing, create an app, throw it out there. I mean, it doesn't take much to get an app out in the Google Marketplace. It takes like $20 to become a Google developer to get your app in the Google Market. I mean, so fly-by-night development houses are doing this stuff, and they're not thinking things through.
Do you think some of that has to do with, I mean, for years these application developers have been developing apps exclusively for Windows, and now they're just having to do it for Unix and just don't know how to?
That could very well be a possibility. It's a lot of it is they're not savvy Unix developers, so they're going wherever the wind takes them, and the wind's taking them into a Unix world that they're not ready for. So, yes, you.
So with the Android phone specifically, Apple's a little bit more locked down. You said it was virtualized. Is there, I guess, direction to start for the Android phones not really doing kind of like a dual boot system, but like a sandbox where they're like, hey, I'm connecting to the corporate with this, but yet connecting with the local online. So that way I've got like a sandbox of files you're not able to get to, but I still am.
I haven't really seen that yet. That's what I was hoping that some of these solutions would provide, to sandbox your email and to sandbox your corporate contacts and stuff like that, but I haven't seen that yet.
Or are there, to go kind of one step lower, are the phones ever to the point where they're like, okay, here's the software to go secure the phone? Are they lying about, yeah, you've got this on the phone, where it's not fully actually taking control of the phone and securing the features that it's saying it is?
I haven't come across it yet where it is. I have come across some like little nuances where it's really easy to get out of compliance with the phone. So when you're out of compliance with the phone, obviously you're not meeting the policy that's been enforced, and I can still connect in and do stuff with it. So it's really easy to do to break it that way, but I haven't seen it where it just flat out lies to me. So in the back.
So from the sandbox perspective, they are developing and engineering PDIs from a dynamic partition perspective. It's not in production yet for most of these providers, but you have companies like Cisco and VMware working with people.
Yeah, I have seen VM or VMware running on an running on an Android phone. So I did see like a demo of that.
I have two questions for you about the MDMs.
Okay.
First question is, do any of the products that you mentioned restrict having access to multiple network connections at the same time?
I haven't seen one that does that. I haven't specifically looked at that, but I do know that you can restrict, like you want to restrict Wi-Fi, you can do that with the phone. Yeah, I haven't seen anything that directly relates to split tunneling, but I have seen where you can disable certain features like disabling Wi-Fi, disabling the Bluetooth. So just in general, it's disabled.
Then the last question I had is, do any of those MDM platforms integrate with the NAC framework?
Not yet, not that I've seen. So there and then.
Question, from a forensic standpoint, you have a user comes to you and says, hey, my battery all of a sudden starts dying, my response time on the browser is really slow. Are you going through forensic research to find out what's going on with it, or are you just taking the policy of wiping it? Because I know when I first got the Android Watch, the thing's constantly chatting with Google. And so the question, if someone has rogue software on your phone, your exacts, and it's constantly synced into a rogue site, what kind of tools are you seeing out there to actually figure that? Or do you just go to a wipe and dump a load of super angry person?
Right now we're just doing the wipe. I mean, we haven't really got to the point where we're doing like serious forensic analysis to that level. I mean, we have looked at forensically, we've looked at phones trying to, see what, where calls were being made, SMS messages and, pictures and stuff like that, just trying to get that residual information off, but not to the point where, we're trying to identify, what applications are running, something more traditional forensics that you would do on a computer when trying to diagnose a problem like that. So.
On my BlackBerry, I have a file or an application roadblock for remote wiping. It does device location, SSID, or SIM card, lock app, it swap the SIM. Do you know anything about that app, good or bad?
No, not about BlackBerry specifically.
Security-wise or anything?
No, I mean we've kind of shied away from BlackBerries because we've been trying to focus more on where we had gaps, and the gap was the Android and iPhones and stuff like that. So that's where we've spent more of our focus on. So we are starting to get a little bit more focus into BlackBerry, just what applications are allowed and stuff like that. So I mean that's definitely one that hopefully will come up in a review that we need to do, and we can investigate it then. But at this moment in time, no. Okay, one last question, because it looks like Tyler wants to.
Do you have any thoughts on tethering?
Any thoughts on tethering? Tethering is great. I love tethering. I love driving down the highway and being on the internet. I think it's awesome. But at the same time, you're bypassing the pricing model that your carrier has out there, and I think it's retarded that they are sitting there, putting that on us. But it's something that you're violating the terms of agreement with the carrier. So I don't recommend it as a company. I don't recommend people doing it if they're doing it through like rooting their phone. But if they're doing it, and they're paying for the service and stuff like that, then it's great. It's fine. I love it when they do that because it allows me to create a mobile hotspot that I know is secure. So I don't have to rely on a hotspot that is shared by a bunch of hackers. So we do that whenever we go to conferences. We use our devices and tether to our devices.
Okay.
So. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.